Bitcoins and beer, Bitcoins and beer. Here is Norm, he's a storm as he screams and raises rants. He is here drinking beer, spilling Bitcoins on his pants. Hello, it's me, Norm again. Here once again to drink beer and rant about Bitcoin. Although the last few rants have not been so much about Bitcoin, about the state of the economy, and Bitcoin is a digital economy. Today might be a little bit of the same, but I will try to relate to Bitcoin as much as possible. Today's beer is called Wipeout IPA. Yep, by Port Brewing. This was one of my favorite IPAs at one time. Sandals. If you ever want to go to Port Brewing, they have several locations. My favorite is in Carlsbad, California, right by Fort Ord, I believe it is, one of the marine ports in Southern California. South of me, in the next county. I believe it's, it goes Anaheim and then San Diego before Mexico. Looks like a lovely beer, doesn't it? Oh gosh, smells very citrusy, very, very nice. Very fine tasting beer. If you can find it in your area, I'm not sure if it's just locally distributed or if it's nationally distributed. If you can find it in your area, I would definitely give it a try, especially if you like IPAs. So, on to today's rant. I picked Wipeout for a particular reason. It's because Bitcoin has not been moving much, which is kind of a good thing because it proves it's not so volatile. But the fact that it was at one time over $1,000, especially where it is now. And now it's, about 2.5. People been scared away from it. I mentioned it to a friend of mine today. I've not mentioned it to him before, which is kind of unusual. I don't mention Bitcoin to friends of mine, but he's like, well, they had a bumpy start. He recognized that it was still around. It's a good thing, because a lot of people don't realize it is still around. And the protocol itself keeps it still around. And they did have a bumpy start, but that is not due to Bitcoin. That is due to people. When I asked for an example of the bumpy start, he said Mt. Gox. Now, Mt. Gox is what it should be referred to as, not Mt. Gox, Mt. Gox. Because it's Magic the Gathering Exchange. It was the first Bitcoin exchange, and it did do something very important for Bitcoin. It gave it a value. Because before that, nobody knew how to value it for any exchange. And then Trade Hill or something, I can't remember the exact name of the next exchange. It was American-based exchange. Mt. Gox was a Magic the Gathering exchange that was bought by some French people. One particular French person named Marc Capellus Not that there is anything wrong with being French. I have French heritage. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But nevertheless, it was a Japanese exchange for game cards that became a Bitcoin exchange after the French company bought it. And the problems they had was their software that they used to build the exchange wasn't Bitcoin itself. There was another one called, BitInstant. Their only problem they had, much better than Mt. Gox. The only problem they had, they were one of the first ones, and they were American-based. And they got dinged for not the right regulations because they weren't even sure of the regulation. Same thing with Trade, I believe it was called TradeHill. Weren't sure of the regulations because they weren't clear yet. They got in way too soon. Weren't sure of the regulations. Mt. Gox had other problems. TradeHill had regulation problems. When regulation doesn't really work, if you think about it, it doesn't work. In one of my last rants, you can go back to some of my last rants about regulated banks that were convicted of felonies. They were regulated, and they are still convicted of felonies. What's the deal with that? What's the deal? I mean, really. So, does regulation really work? You got, like, institutions that were convicted of money laundering. I can't remember what bank it was. I think it was Deutsche Bank. For Mexican cartels, they were convicted of money laundering. Yet this, like, kid in his 20s, actually now he's in his 30s, being a CEO, BitInstant, Charlie Shrem, went to jail because he was CEO of an institution that was convicted of money laundering. BitInstant. He went to jail. He's in jail right now. Yet, there's this Jamie Dimon never went to jail. He didn't go to jail. Works for a felony corporation that cannot pass a background check for government jobs, yet they're a government contractor. This company is a government contractor, yet they cannot pass a government. Jamie Dimon is free. He's scot-free. Which is, scot-free is an old slavery term, because last name of this slave was Scott, and he got set free and scot-free. But that's history for you. Charlie Shrem is in jail, and Jamie Dimon isn't. And Jamie Dimon's company is still around doing government contracts. Charlie Shrem's company is not. What lunacy is this? Wipeout IPA. Great beer from Port Brewing. Satoshi saved is Satoshi earned. Think about what I'm saying Where is the logic? What are we fighting for? Bitcoin is a democratic, has checks and balances, mathematically checks and balances. If we don't, it's open source. Open source is a democratic society. A democratic society. We're living somewhere not what our values are fighting for. Cheers. Satoshi saved Satoshi earned.